used to think Christianity was only for ignorant people. I studied science, philosophy, and everything I could to disprove it. But no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that God was real. And one desperate night, everything changed.
Whether you're seeking true stories, real-life Christian testimonies, uplifting moments, or just a little bit of hope, you can find it here. This is Kingdom Chronicles. What you're about to hear is a true story, one that might sound familiar. Maybe you've heard it before, or maybe you've even lived it yourself. Someone grows up in a church but feels more burdened by rules rather than connected to God. Over time, doubt creeps in and they walk away, convinced that faith has nothing left to offer. But sometimes, even when we think we've left God behind, He's still writing our story. This is a powerful testimony of doubt, searching, and ultimately, unshakable faith. This is Brevlyn's story.
I was born into a Latter-day Saints church. As a little girl, I believed in Jesus Christ, God, the Holy Spirit, etc., but I didn't understand salvation, and I don't know if I really had true faith at that time. Around the time I entered puberty, I started feeling guilty in church since I was looking at boys, which is obviously normal, but no one told me that, so I thought I was dirty and wrong. I didn't like that feeling, and I couldn't reconcile it because I had not been taught about God's mercy and forgiveness towards His children. It was all, be perfect, or God will leave you. In my church, all I remember hearing from adults were comments on my clothing being too revealing, which was insane because it was always very modest. Women would come after me for a skirt being an inch above my knee and made me feel ashamed of my body, and they treated me like I was looking for attention, which I was not. I knew in my heart that was wrong. I knew that if there was a God as great as they say, He wouldn't be so petty about clothing or soda or tattoos or all the things that were not allowed. Deep down, I knew that it's what's inside that matters, and this church was not teaching that. I stopped going to church, and I considered myself agnostic for a few years. I felt God with me, but I just knew that church wasn't quite right. I struggled for a long time with those feelings of guilt, and that church made me feel very sour about all of Christianity. Around 14, a nasty older man poisoned me against Christianity by showing me a series of Zeitgeist movies. I fell for it hard, and was an atheist for the next 10 years. I admit that I looked down on Christians and used every ounce of my intellect to try and disprove Christianity so that I could be sure of myself. Honestly, I was feeling insecure, unsure, because I couldn't shake the feeling that God was there with me, even though I firmly believed it was absolutely insane. I told myself that those feelings were some kind of religious trauma playing tricks on me. I really can't overstate just how much I studied philosophy and science so that I could be confident in my views disproving Christianity. Eventually, I somehow got into a relationship with a Catholic at this time. I felt a bit safer with the possibility of being a Christian because I knew my boyfriend wouldn't think I was stupid if I ever started believing again. My previous boyfriends were always atheist and wouldn't approve. In college, I had mentors and professors who were unbelievably brilliant STEM people who happened to all be Christians. These two things started slowly chipping away at my belief that Christianity was just for ignorant people. Life proceeded to slam me against a wall for like 3 years straight. One especially bad night, I was crying my eyes out because I was sure things would never get better, and I didn't know what to do. I felt absolutely helpless. I don't remember exactly what I said, but I basically gave myself up to God in desperation. I begged for inner peace. I begged for a way to find Him. Literally, in that moment, I felt changed. I swear I felt my pain just lift away. I started following a few Christian influencers on social media, and they further showed me that Christians can be reasonable, critical thinkers, etc. I saw examples of really solid doctrine that doesn't contradict itself, or my inner moral compass. My mom happily gifted me a beautiful new Bible that we picked out together, and I studied every day. I have rock-solid faith now. I haven't looked back. The more time I spend focused on God, the happier I am, and I find it easier to be patient and hopeful. I do kind of forget about God sometimes when I get caught up in worldly things, but I always come back, and I never lose faith.
Brevlyn's story is something that so many people can relate to. She grew up in the church, but instead of feeling the love and grace of God, she was weighed down by rules, shame, and unrealistic expectations of perfection. And when that became too much, she walked away. Now, this is something that I hear all the time. People aren't actually rejecting God, they're just rejecting a version of religion that feels empty or like a huge burden. And honestly, I can't blame them. Faith was never meant to be about fear or checking all the right boxes. It's about knowing Jesus personally, building that relationship. But what's so powerful about Brevlyn's testimony is that even when she tried to shut out faith completely, God never let her go. She spent years studying philosophy and science, convinced that she could prove Christianity false. And even with that, despite all of the knowledge that she gained, she couldn't shake the feeling that there was something more. And that's the thing about truth. It doesn't go away just because you ignore it. Sometimes we just have to reach the end of ourselves before we realize that what we've actually been searching for has been right in front of us the whole time. For Brevlyn, that moment came when she was in total desperation, when she had nowhere else to turn, and she cried out to God. He answered. The beauty of who God is not that He's waiting for us to be perfect. He's not demanding that we have all the answers before we come to Him. The beauty is that He simply wants us to seek Him with an open heart, and He'll meet us where we're at. If you've ever doubted, if you've ever walked away, or if you've ever felt like faith just doesn't make sense, let this story be an encouragement to you. God is not afraid of your questions. He's not put off by your doubts. He's patient and He's full of grace. Because the moment you actually open your heart to Him, you'll realize that He's been there all along. If you enjoyed this story, please tap that like button, hit subscribe, or leave a comment to let us know what you think. We're always on the lookout for new Christian testimonies to share, so if you or someone you know has a story of faith that could inspire others, we'd love to hear it. Check the link in the description to share your testimony with us. If you want to hear an amazing story about a girl who escaped the cult that she grew up in and found faith that saved her life, check out this video right here. This is Kingdom Chronicles by We Thrive Christian Inspiration. Together, we can do more than survive. We thrive. Catch you in the next one.